I'll give a brief overview, well, brief for about half an hour of what the course entails and what it's about, what its aims are and all that sort of thing. And then I'll hand over to Jonathan, who'll go through the 3 modules that he runs. There's 5 modules altogether, and then come back to me. I'll talk about the 2 modules that I run, and then we'll have a question and answer session. We will be joined later by one of the current MA students, Jasmine, because she's going to join us about 3 o'clock. So, I'm expecting this will last for about an hour and a half. So if obviously if you can't stay for that long, we are recording this, and therefore a recording will be available at another time. So it's fine if you need to pop out. I wonder if you could say your name and where you're from, just so if you can unmute. So Marjolein, maybe you could start with you.
My name is Marjolein. I'm from the Netherlands.
Okay, thank you. Vero?
I'm from Spain, and my name is Veronica.
Veronica, okay. Paddy?
Yeah, my name's Paddy. I'm originally from Ireland, but now living in London.
In Dublin, okay. Edward?
My name is Edward, and I am from surprisingly sunny Manchester today.
Sorry, I missed that. Could you repeat that?
I'm from Manchester.
Manchester, okay. Okay, great. Kaylee, can you unmute and just tell us where you're from? Okay. I'm not hearing that, I'm afraid. It says you're unmuted, but...
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I can.
Okay, cool. My name's Kaylee. I'm from London, but I'm calling in from Manchester at the moment.
Okay. Oh, 2 of you in Manchester. Leandro, can you unmute?
Yes, my name is Leandro, and I'm from Brazil.
Brazil, okay. And are you in Brazil now?
Yes, I am, unfortunately.
Okay. And Bron, where are you from?
Hi, I'm Bron. I'm originally from Wales, but I'm currently in Glasgow, Scotland.
Glasgow, okay, good. Well, welcome to you all. There may be other people joining us later on. We've got, I think, I'm pretty sure there's one more. Heather's just leaving us now. So, okay. Now, I presume you've all seen the information on the website. So this is all additional to that. And of course, there's lots of video footage there of the classes and all that sort of thing. So, so we'll just do a quick overview. I'm going to now switch into a point, and let's just see if
everybody could mute their microphones during this next part, that would be really useful. So that
I'm just going to talk straight for
just cut down the extraneous crunch and whiz and pop.
Good. So I hope you could see a picture of a group of people, one going through a hoop, and we'll go into the first slide. So, yeah, this is an overview, as I said, of this MA. So, what is an MA in directing circus? As far as we know, it's the only such course in the world. There are some related ones. There's one at Dock in Sweden where they do an MA in circus itself, but I think not in directing. And as far as I know, there's also one at the SENAC in France where it's an MA in dramaturgy, I think, possibly circus dramaturgy. So So there are some related courses, but as far as I know, this is the only one actually in directing circus. So, so what is it? So it's three things really. It's research, it's preparation for the profession, and it's also an academic qualification. And it's just trying to keep the balance between those three things. And I'm going to, in this presentation, I'm going to work through those things, explaining what they entail, what we think they are. So the idea is to give a sort of a comprehensive view of MA, of circus directing, but also going into some specifics, so some areas we give special attention to, so it allows each MA student enough scope to follow their individual paths. We you know, because it's a higher level degree, we follow the students, and to a certain extent there's lots of visiting tutors. So if there are specific interests in the MA group, that we will bring specific tutors into that. So it might be in social circus or in choreography, or it could be all sorts of things. So so we do follow that. So so question that came up when we were first setting it up was why do it at an MA level? The Spa University that we're attached to describes all their performance MA programs as professional MAs. That's to say that they are a preparation for working, but at the same time, this also requires independent research. So the emphasis on the independence, that you need to follow your own paths. We can't, although we give an overview, comprehensive overview of everything, we can't go into detail of every subject area, because as we'll see, there's a huge variety of contexts and styles and briefs. So we have to, in certain stages of the course, hand over to you, and we support you as you follow your research journey. So the job, as we know, I'm sure you all know, is multifaceted and very complex. There's you know, you will need analytical skills, practical skills, management skills, creative skills, and we try and give you a taster of all those things, a snapshot of what all those entail. And of course, an MA, the job of directing circus is a position of considerable responsibility. There's not only the health and safety, there's the artistic integrity, the you know, making the whole thing work, the management, etc., etc. So yeah, it's hugely complex. We have a session later on at the beginning of the course where we go into questioning what are the many different roles that a director of circus might have to play. Well, I won't do that now, but I'm sure you realize that sometimes circus directing, unlike perhaps in theatre where certain roles are very much clearly subdivided, because of the different scales that circus projects happen on, it might be that the director has to be the producer, they might be the author, they might have to be the designer. You know, I've had to been asked to suddenly design the costumes, or you know, select the music, or write script, or so there's all those artistic things, and there's also the soft skills. Like you have to lead sometimes, you have to be a supporter, a teacher, a friend, a counsellor. Could be all sorts of things. So you know, we can make a list probably of about 50 different roles that a circus director might be asked to play. So very complex. So that's just on the roles, and although it's scary, it won't be that scary. So research, this is the first of our three subjects. Why research? This question has come up with some MA students coming from directly from the profession, people who've worked a lot rather than come through academia. They say, well, let's just make the work. You don't need to do that much research. But as is probably obvious, that the directors are always engaged in the research process. Because it's always a new combination of elements. There's different people, different equipment, different priorities, different contexts that the show happens in, different expectations, and performers are very different. So if you give them different stimuli, then they will respond slightly differently according to their background, their education, their training, whatever. So it's always a research process, and I think we're just being joined by Sophie, who's just coming in. Welcome, Sophie. I can't see you, but I'm just going through the overview of the course at the moment. Okay. So what is involved in the research element? This may be obvious to some of you, but it's not just about finding out what you don't know. It's about making a contribution to the body of knowledge about circus that can be then shared with other people. So it's advancing the horizons, the borders of knowledge, as well as you finding out about the areas that you don't know. So we're looking at creating new areas, always pushing things out. So therefore, you need to know what's been done before by reviewing the existing knowledge. There is, of course, as we know, with circus, there's lots of books about the history, about the nature of different companies, lots of biographies, etc. There's all the practical knowledge that is not written down, but can be sourced perhaps through video footage, historical video footage, etc. So, and that's a wider area of lots of academic sources about other areas, relevant areas, theatre, dance, choreography, etc. So with the research element, we want you to use original thinking. Obviously, you're acquiring, you're furthering your knowledge about what's already out there, but then to take this knowledge and through your practice to go further, to push those boundaries. And particularly with this subject area, it's all about the combinations. There's always different combinations, different emphases, different sorts of performance, different approaches. So yeah, original thinking is important. And you do that, of course, by experimenting, and particularly by practice as research. Some of you will know what practice as research is. I'll let Jonathan speak much more about that. But you can, it will be the course tries to give you devising tools, but it's also with a view that you make your own devising tools or make your own combinations of devising tools, so that or other creative tools. We let the focus of your research over the year just come gradually, come naturally. So it's by going into these new areas that you, by the end of the course, you will sort of hone down into a specific questions, specific areas that you can then explore in your final project. The MA is can also be a preparation for a PhD. Of course, it's the same nature, both practice, academic, writing, etc. It's just a shorter dissertation, but it is a kind of smaller model of a PhD. That's Occam's razor at the church. To give you an idea, if you don't know our space, you can see the size of the space. And this is a show that Occam's razor did a few years ago, until we are lost. So, well, just following on from that. So, what academic knowledge does exist? There is limited academic writing, analytical writing on circus, but there is some. Last year, the Routledge brought out a very good book called Contemporary Circus by 3 authors, which they launched at Circa Media. But there's books like Circus Bodies by Petter Tate that was written in about 2000 actually. So it does go back a bit, but it's not, it's fairly new, the writing in circus, but it's coming, you know. We will be part of building that body of knowledge. There's also websites. The Circus Arts Research Platform is a good site. So these are things you could do if you're interested in joining the course. These are books that you can look at before you would join the course, just to familiarise yourself with what's there. And as I said, there's lots of writing on related areas: choreography, design, dramaturgy, etc. Yeah, we can, and that's the exciting thing about this the only course in the world doing this is that we can generate new writing and define new norms, new ways of doing things. So you would be in the avant-garde of this new new area of practice. So here's a little bubble chart of the possible research directions. You've got the MADC, the Masters in Directing Circus, in the centre, and these arrows give just a sample of the sort of areas that you could go into, and they get more and more detailed the further you go out, of course. So just going north for a moment, you could go into how it's received is, so it goes into youth circus and political circus, education, aesthetics. To the top right, I suppose the roles and status as director in regard of what they are with the performers, so it's looking at either, I'll talk more about that when we come to modules, but are you on an equal level with the performers? Are you supporting them from a lower level, or are you leading them from a higher level? So there's those, and then that leads into the particular psychology of the performers and the directors. Bottom right, devising processes, obviously, tools, dramaturgy, choreographic means. Due south, there's all those styles. I'll talk more about styles in a minute. Theatre circus and circus theatre, different sort of ways in, going to clown, and the whole issue of authenticity that's been very, very popular to be explored in the last 10 years. About 9 o'clock is given assumptions. What could circus be? There's what do we assume it is, and can we challenge that? Do we want to challenge it? We don't have to. But and then top left, there's all these the circus with other media, puppetry, film, design, music, and different sorts of equipment. So that's so we would support you in any of these journeys. It's very open. It's not just simply making a show. You could be exploring all these things at the same time. There's a man who's got too much in his mouth. And so secondly, so on to the next subject, the preparation for the profession. So we we give an overview in the first term about the different performance contexts, you know, whether that's theatre, tent, cabaret, what's, you know, the expectations, the assumptions that go around being in those sort of spaces, the different styles of circus, you know, it could be burlesque circus, clown circus, grotesque circus, etc. Then the different approaches, how do you start, how do you form the brief, as it were? How do you, what are you given by the performers? What ideas are there already? Who are the performers? What equipment can you have? You know, so there's deciding all those sort of things, and then how to use all those. And then further on, there's issues of dramaturgy, which I'll talk about in a moment. And I'll talk about the different styles of directing a bit later on. So we try and cover all these areas. Some of it contemporary, some of it more trad, some of it outdoors and indoors. We give an overview of the different cultural contexts that circus can happen in, you know, either rooted in history or determined more by different cultural norms in different geographical areas. There's the you know, dividing between mainstream, you know, traditional or neo-traditional or more niche forms of circus. Then there's related to that is the different aims of it. Is it to make money? Is it social circus to develop people? Is it niche circus to more explore art forms, to appeal to particular smaller audiences? And then there's the whole thing of scale. There's this large scale or small scale, which determines logistics, of course. That's also at the church. You can do that more traditional thing there. So we think that there are, you know, in terms of approaches, then and you might find your place in one of these. Obviously, the circus that emerges from technique or the equipment, and that tends to be making an act. The circus emerging from choreographic tools, and that could be applied to more group work. Could be very technical based, or might be more theme based, as like the circus emerging from theatre, metaphors. You know, it's got subject matter to start with, and then you apply the circus. You know, very popular in the last 20 years has been circus emerging from identity or the personality of the performer. Who are they? Why are they doing this particular circus activity? And then there's, of course, the circus with combined with what has different terms for it. Post-dramatic theatre is one. Could be live arts is another term for it. But they kind of play with form. You know, what else can you do apart from just having an audience that sits down and watches? You know, so many other things that can be explored. Okay, so yeah, I hinted at this already. The approaches. What are the givens in any project? What do you know about it? So this thing of forming a brief before you start. How far can you go? There might be things. This is for a family audience, this show, so that means that some material may not be suitable, or you know, how many people can you work with? You know, what is the budget, etc., etc. So that all those things need to be established before you start. Then further on in the thinking needs to be deciding what kind of dramaturgy can be applied. I'll explain a bit more about dramaturgy in a minute for those less familiar with the term. What processes to be used? That is, so are you going to start with a fixed idea, for example, and then fill in the gaps, fill in the blanks as you work towards that idea that's already formed in your head, or are you going to start with a very open brief and just simply explore until you know what the show is about? Of the visiting directors that come, Sean Gandini and Charlotte from Occam's Razor, they use very different processes. There's no right way, of course, to do circus directing. There are just many different ways, and they're all valid. So it's what suits you or what suits the project. And then further on, what specific devising tools, what exercises will you use, or activities will you do to generate material? And then, of course, how do you plan rehearsals, both in the long term? You've got 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or whatever. How do you break that up? How do you schedule that? And then even within the rehearsal session, it's good to plan. I've got 2 hours. Okay, I need to do 5 minutes of chat, and then 10 minutes of warm up, then whatever, and then these 3 activities, and then something at the end, whatever. So that kind of minute by minute rehearsal plans are useful. You don't have to stick to them, but they give you, you're better prepared when you go into the rehearsal room. So dramaturgy, it's defined in different ways by many different people, but what my understanding of it is threefold, really. It's firstly what is being communicated through the in the work, either intended meaning, that's the meaning that you start with, that you want to get across to an audience, or through semiotics. There may be things about the nature of the performance, the context it's in, that it's already communicating meaning about, who are the people watching this? What are their expectations? Have they come for entertainment? What is signified by all the different motifs in the performance? So just things like, associated with circus, traditional circus, is stars and stripes, and that actually comes from the patriotic history of circus, so particularly the American circus. So that's how those things came in. So those things are residually affecting the experience of the audience. They may not notice those things, but these associations will be there. So the other, semiotics, will of course explain. There's a very good book on circus semiotics by Wisak, worth checking out. And structures is the other sense of dramaturgy. How do all the different elements interrelate? So, traditionally in theatre, you might have a plot and a subplot, but how do those storylines intersect? And then how does that fit into the bigger picture of the general theme of the piece? So that kind of theatre dramaturgy approach can be applied to circus in quite an interesting way. Occam's Razor, you probably know. Different styles of directing we will cover mainly through the 2 practical modules. We have this approach of either looking at it from a point of view of performer as source, so that the performer has the idea and the director is then supporting them, polishing, clarifying, etc. Or the director's author module is more about authorship. You come in with your idea. But of course, in any process, directing process, both those levers need to be in play. So sometimes in any process, an author-led piece will be needing to support the performers in what they do. So you are following even in a performer source situation, you will also have to suggest a lead if there is a lack of ideas, for example. So it's just a matter of having those two levers ready and to operate them, to engage them as appropriate in any situation. And I've mentioned this already, this idea of having a very open vision of or not even having a vision of what the outcome will be, the final product, but just following experiments and research and just see what arrives, or having a much clearer idea right from the beginning. Both have their advantages and disadvantages, and so it's a question about how much time you've got, how quickly you have to define the outcome. So again, all about context. So on to the third part of this is the academic qualification. So this is quite brief, but there are certain requirements that have to be done to get the Masters of Arts qualification. So in your writing, it's important that you're able to communicate. I would say that's the main thing, that to get your idea across in writing, or it could be in speaking. Some people are not, they're not comfortable with writing for various reasons. So we can switch that into more Viva type interview situations where we sort of interrogate you on what your ideas are, if necessary. But so it's mainly about being clear, and secondly, it's about asking questions. So analysing why does this work like this? Why am I doing this? Why are they doing this? How do all these elements fit together? So and it's to give us to go deeper into what is going on, rather than describing this is what we did in rehearsals, this is what happened. Rather than so exploring. This is how to do research all the time. The academic qualification also requires some academic conventions like Harvard referencing. Some of you will know all about that. But Harvard is the one that Spire University used, so we use that. It's quite simple to get a hang of. Can be a little bit tedious to follow all the nuances of it, but it's required. So and as I said, the EMA is a preparation for a PhD. Who teaches on this course? I've mentioned Charlotte Mooney from Occam's Razor, Sean Gandini. These are regular people who come in and do a day or two or 3 or 4 over the course of the year. We also, Lino Johansson from Mimbre, Laura Murphy, who you may know, Friends Guidi, Norfolk State, Jolly Vian, acrobatic duo, and we had last year we had Ben Duke from Lost Dog, which is very interesting, coming from his angle on theatre and authenticity and all that sort of thing. We also have, rather than workshop leaders, we have as well visiting lecturers, people such as Ali King from Turtle Key Arts, who produce Occam's Razor, but also produce other companies. So she's very familiar with all the venues in the UK and further afield that take circus work and outdoor work. And then, specialists like Lyndall Merry from Norfolk State, who came in and did a brilliant session on, well, it was sort of about health and safety and rigging and just a very practical point of view after, his long experience of working with them. becoming their head rigger, and yeah, and just that was a good session, I thought. Of course, myself and Jonathan are main teachers. We give the tutorials, run sessions, particular sessions on particular subjects. And then there's also other Circa Media staff. Nick Young, our artistic and management director. He's also a theatre producer, circus producer. So, and he runs the program at church venue. So he knows all the circus companies. So he gives a really good session on funding, booking tours, relating to venues and things like that. Kate Webb does a really good session on soft skills and creative writing. So there's so there's a range, but it varies from year to year. As I say, according to the interests of the students. So what do you need? You need good knowledge of circus practice. So it's not really suitable for people who are just simply coming from theatre or dance and just want to learn more about circus. We assume that you know about circus practice, so either for ex-performers or your current performers as well, but people who have been circus practitioners, or are very familiar with being in a circus. Could be teachers as well, people who've been in the room. Also important is experience of research methods, and having a BA qualification is the standard requirement. If some people have come from years of experience in the profession and they don't have that academic qualification, and we would look at their application on a case-by-case basis. We also want, of course, initiative, important, and independence of thought. Most importantly, time. It's a lot of students have had issues with they're trying to subsidize themselves during the course with jobs, and that can often get in the way of doing the work on the course, and so that can be a bit of an issue. And the other requirement is that, and for the last year only, you have to be within the European Union. We can't give student visas from outside Europe. That would be a technical thing. I hope that's not a problem for any of you. Okay, so that is the end of the that part, and I'm going to hand over now to Jonathan. As I say, it's possible to ask questions. I'm sure you've got questions already. So I'm going to